Once upon a time, one man spent large portions of his free time binge playing Kerbal Space Program. This series is the result. Hello everyone, I am Peppino back playing Kerbal Space Program, and this is episode 3 of this series. And in the first 2 episodes, we managed to put down 3 different sections of a Minmus base that we're constructing. Each section is launched and dropped on Minmus separately, and they are all attached to wheels and can roll and dock together to create one giant movable base. So it's pretty cool, and it's all going really well so far. We've got housing sections and a science lab section down. We can currently house up to 22 Kerbals, as well as do scientific experiments, I guess, with the science lab. So, this time, we are going to add another section, which, if you can't already tell, is a large orange tank of fuel. That's right, we want to take on the ambitious task of putting a full orange tank down on the surface of Minmus, so that we can have landers and things like that stop at the base in the future. They will all be able to refuel and all of that if they need to. As well as, hopefully we're going to be putting some rovers down on the surface very soon. And I'm currently in the process of testing a couple different designs of rovers that we will be able to use, and some of them will use fuel up and we'll be able to fly and things like that. So that will all be the uses for this fuel section of our base. But as you can see, we used up quite a bit of fuel just getting it into orbit, and now we're using up even more to get it out to around Minmus, and we have to set up our encounter there. And so there we go. That is our orange tank section on its way to Minmus. And we get our encounter, and it's not a great encounter. I probably could have done a little better. But that's okay, because we're going to have to refuel this thing in orbit around Minmus anyway. And so all we need is enough fuel to get us captured like that, and put us in a nice equatorial orbit, which will hardly take any fuel at all. So we warp up to our burn node here and bring our orbit in and get it slightly more equatorial, which will be better for our fuel section that we are going to have to fly to Minmus, which we see right here. This is the one we used last episode, and if you remember, this orange tank is empty. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the RCS on board to deorbit it, just so we don't have to carry along extra mass, and so that we don't have random debris or useless things cluttering our orbit. And so we also get to see re-entry and an explosion, which is always fun. The other thing I did that I did right after this, as we see the re-entry effects kicking in, is I used the same launcher that you guys have seen many times to launch 2 full orange tanks of fuel into low Kerbin orbit. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record while doing that, and so we missed it. But anyway, I did that, and as we see here, unfortunately it's on the night side, so it's tough to see anything. I really have to pay better attention to that. But anyway, yeah, the thing is going to crash down very soon, and we'll get to see the explosion in the dark. There it is, and it is very satisfying. Everything flies up and makes a nice individual explosion, and we get to see lots and lots of fireballs. So anyway, right here is the fuel tanks that I have put up into orbit, and now our goal is to get those fuel tanks connected to the other fuel tank and nuclear engines that we left in orbit last episode. So we are burning with our nuclear engines to get a nice encounter with those other fuel tanks. And this is basically going to leave us with about 2.5 orange tanks worth of fuel to take to Minmus and refuel our orange tank, as well as leave some extra fuel up in orbit in case we need it in the future, like we need it now. So here we go, bringing our encounter down very close and then slowing down our target velocity, as we always do. We come within 500 meters here, and there we go. We can see our fuel reserve right up there. Now it's just a matter of getting right up next to it and docking. And again, thanks to the magic of editing, this goes rather quickly. It was a very long process docking these large things together in orbit, especially when you're moving very, very slowly, the way we are. Actually, I suppose they're all moving really, really fast, but compared to each other, they're moving rather slowly. And anyway, they are also rather difficult to turn because they're huge and only have small RCS thrusters. But anyway, there we go, and eventually we get it all docked, and that is right there, a beautiful large fuel tank stage. And remember that space tug that I launched with that? Yeah, we get rid of that there, we ditch it, and then we dock our nuclear engine stage back on and prepare to burn for Minmus. And I set up my maneuver node and all of that, again, off camera, just because you've seen me do it probably 5 times so far in the first few episodes. And anyway, this one though, because of the slowness of the nuclear engines, as well as how large this craft is, I had to actually go around Kerbin multiple times, burning at the periapsis each time before I was able to get up to a high enough velocity to actually get my Minmus encounter. So we went around once already, we go around again, this tank runs out, so we ditched that, and now we're just carrying 2 tanks, so we will be able to extend our orbit a lot faster and pick up speed a lot faster. So there we go, and I believe it is this time around that we get our Minmus encounter right there. It's not a great one, but as long as we get an encounter, we should have plenty of power to get ourselves captured and then correct our orbit. So there we go, and this thing becomes a lot easier to steer as well when it's just 2 orange tanks rather than 3, for whatever reason. I guess there's lots of reasons behind it, but I'm not going to go into explaining all of the physics behind why that would be difficult to turn. Partially because I'm not qualified to explain the physics, and also I just don't really care. And we see here, we are going to have a very odd orbit around Minmus, but that's alright. It's real easy to correct. So we get down to our periapsis, and we are burning like crazy with our nuclear engines. They are just chugging away, and eventually here comes our orbit. And we kill the engines right there, and finish off our orbit, and then stop burning. The reason I left us in such a wide orbit is because then it will take less fuel to correct it and make changes. At least I believe that's how it works. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. All of this knowledge is based on only playing Kerbal Space Program and not actually taking any classes or anything that qualify me to talk about this. So, take all my orbital mechanics advice with a grain of salt. Just something that should probably be known. But anyway, we are now just going to bring down our orbit so that we can bring this full orange tank down for landing and then connect it to the rest of our base. And once we do this, I believe the next goal is going to be to get some RCS sections down there as well, so we can refuel RCS and fuel. And then I'm going to want to work on some landers and rovers down to the base. And we warp around one time and completely miss our periapsis because we hit time warp one too many times. But anyway, we bring it down and then begin correcting our orbit so that we can dock this fuel section with the orange tank section, refuel everything, and then get that down to the surface. So here we go, bringing it in nice and easy to our maneuver node. We don't want to time warp past it, which is very easy to do. So there we go. We start our burn, and we'll just bring it down until we get a nice close encounter right about there. Perfect. Until it changes. But anyway, it's not too bad afterwards. So it seems to be just jumping around randomly, which I don't really understand, but hey, you know, whatever. So we time warp over, and once we get close, we start killing our relative velocity to the target, which will correct our orbit just fine. And there we go. And we can see we are getting closer, so our closest approach is going to be down to about 300 meters or 200 meters. So that is perfect. And we're moving nice and slow, and this should be a relatively easy docking, other than the fact that these are fairly large and difficult to control. But either way, it shouldn't take too long, hopefully. So as you can see, all of our RCS thrusters going, and it looks like, again, we may have a little bit of light issues as far as docking, although I guess there we can see better. And so we aim our docking ports at each other and let them float closer. Now, unfortunately, the landing stage doesn't have RCS, which means, or does it have RCS? Maybe it does. I don't think it does, though. I believe I have to do all of, yeah, no it does not. I have to do all of the moving around with RCS with this gigantic fuel stage, which leads to this docking taking way longer and being way more difficult than it needed to be. So, what I eventually do is undock the nuclear stage, just the nuclear engine stage, which is much easier to maneuver. I move it over, connect it to the lander stage, and then I dock the combination of those two back to the large fuel tanks, because that makes it a lot easier to control rather than having one giant ship that I have to control. I can just control a medium-sized ship, and then both of our ships will have RCS, which is very important. So anyway, here we go, and I know you can't see anything. I can't see anything either. But again, I am really bad at remembering to try and dock on the day side. But anyway, we get it docked eventually, which you can't see probably, but there we go. And we're doing all of our refueling and everything we need to, and then we can undock everything. We have about one full tank of fuel, I believe, left. So we will take this other fuel tank and deorbit it using RCS, just like that. And we don't need to watch this one, I don't think, although maybe I left that in there. But I believe I instead just switched back. Yes, I did. I just switched back to this and skip forward until we were bringing this in for landing. So here we go, bringing our full orange tank section of our base down for landing. And we come in from the opposite side, actually, that we have been normally. which is a shame. I think it looks really cool coming in from the other side. Not that it doesn't look cool from this side, but it just looks extra cool from the other side, in my opinion. Just because we're landing in one of these valleys and it looks almost like a little runway or a landing strip for you. But either way, here we go, bringing it down a few kilometers away from our other base sections. And luckily, even though this is a very heavy thing to try and land, we don't have any problems with it thanks to the very low gravity on Minmus. And we come down actually just under a kilometer away, it looks like, from the rest of our sections. So we bring it down nice and slowly, just because I don't want to pop any of these rover wheels, because that would just create an unnecessary pain, having to either drive with a broken wheel or go repair them. That's the one thing about this thing is very tall, and so if you don't have a wide base with your rover wheels, it's going to want to tip over. And I have a pretty wide base with mine, and this one still wants to tip if I get going too quickly. So, you gotta watch out for that. And here we go. We can make sure everything is fully fueled, and then decouple that and send it away. And I just sent it up into orbit, and I just did that all off camera because we've seen it before. And we are ready to drive this thing all the way over and dock it up with the rest of our stuff. So, again, this is going at about 1 meter per second. We get up to 1.5 meters per second eventually, but actually we're up to 2, but it doesn't go much faster than that on account of it really kind of wants to tip over all the time. So, either way, we come kind of just drifting in here. These things do kind of drift as you drive them along the surface. Come in here and line up and get lined up pretty much perfectly right off the bat. That is the nice thing. They go slow, but they're very easy to maneuver. And we bring it in, dock it together nicely, and that is the first 4 main sections of our base. Everything set up perfectly, and soon, we'll just watch a day here, but soon we will get some RCS sections on there, as well as rovers and other ships for our Kerbals to mess around with, and all of that stuff. So, we'll deploy our solar panels here, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and will like and subscribe and all of that, and make sure to join us next time when we continue to add exciting new things to our Minmus base. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.